We've all chased a dream we felt we might never reach. For Team USA, it might be a gold medal. For the team of tomorrow, it might be getting into college or inventing something no one's even dreamed of. We want to make sure nothing gets in the way of those dreams and that everyone has equal access to the opportunities to achieve them. That's why Comcast is committing $1 billion to help 50 million people succeed in the digital world. Because the generation we prepare today is the team that will help build us all a better tomorrow.
Hey guys, this is Sydney Taylor from Metal from the Inside, and you are listening to Jay Scott on the Hook Rocks podcast.
I totally love that song. Rock and Roll Woman by Amy Darling. We got Amy coming up here shortly with a great interview, a great new music spotlight. Happy Monday to all of you. Hope you're doing well today. Hope your case of the Mondays is almost over. Only a few hours left in the day till it turns to Terrible Tuesday. Hope you enjoyed your weekend. Hope you were out barbecuing amongst friends. Hopefully seeing some live shows. Who knows how much longer live shows are going to be around this year. I have a feeling we're going to get some pretty bad news here shortly. I know a lot of people are canceling dates. I know there's been a lot of reschedules, a lot of postponements. I don't really know what's going to happen. I don't know if they're going to mandate vaccines in order for you to enter, or if, showing a proof of negative COVID test. I don't know what's going to happen, but it's not looking good. I've said it before on previous episodes. We are taking major steps backwards, and I hope now that the vaccine is FDA approved, it gives people confidence to go and get it. But if not, and if we're in the same boat, this is going to be a long fall and a long cold winter. It is. It's not looking good, and especially with all these bands that have struggled, a lot of these new bands that have struggled to make ends meet over the last year and a half because they haven't been bringing in any revenue. And folks, Spotify streaming services, as Dee Snider said in an interview a couple weeks ago here on the Hook Rocks, streaming services do not make money, or artists do not make money from Spotify, Apple, Amazon, all these streaming services that you love and subscribe to or follow or whatever you call it now. They make money by touring. They make money by selling merchandise at the merch tables. They make money by getting on a tour, with a band that's, taking them around and whatever they're, whatever they're making per show. That's how they get the word out. That's how they make money. Getting COVID or having COVID affect their ability to play live, that's not good. It's not good at all. It's not good for music. It's not good for the genre. So mask up, get your vaccines. Let's go. Let's continue to rock. Let's be positive. Let's kick this COVID in the butt. Let's get back on track. Please, people, pleading with you. Got some more great music coming up here. I know I just aired the Danko Jones interview last week. Great interview there. Thanks for the positive feedback. His new album, Power Trio, is out the 27th, so look for that. Look for the new John Corabi single dropping next Monday. had the chance to listen to that song. It is awesome. It's a lot different than what we're expecting from John. A lot different than, the Dead Daisies, his Motley Crue, Scream, all that stuff. So can't wait for you guys to hear that. And we might be doing something with John here in the coming days. So be on the lookout for that. And I know Kiss is back to touring. Kiss caused some controversy last week, or Gene caused some controversy last week with making comment about David Lee Roth, which, I always pride myself in being a little self-aware of what I'm saying and what I'm doing. And when Gene comes out and says he'd like to remember David Lee Roth as he was and compares him to Elvis versus Elvis before he died, Gene, Kiss is nowhere near in the same room right now as they were in their prime. So let's not go down that road. Shit, let's, there's nothing wrong with saying, hey, you know what? We had David Lee Roth on the tour last year or before COVID. He was helping us sell some tickets, and it was a great bill to be on, but we didn't make any money last year, and we're going back to the painter. That's pretty much the truth of the matter on that. But anyway, let's talk some rock and roll with Amy Darlin before we get to a quick word from our sponsor. Please visit us wherever you do podcasts. Please listen to us on Amazon, Apple, Spotify, Google, wherever you do podcasts, wherever you follow. You can listen to all our episodes, old and new. We are part of the Pantheon Podcast Network, a great network of music podcasts. You can check out my fellow podcasters on that platform. Great family to be a part of. They just sponsored a great event, Rockin' Pod. I was supposed to be down there, but as some of you know, I've had some health issues over the last 7-8 months, and I'm healthy now. Everything is good now, but my stamina and my strength still is not there to be out and about for a long period of time. I've been to a couple shows here over the last month, and it has been a struggle just because I got to get stronger. So that went into play in my decision. Sorry I could not meet all of you wonderful people down there and all the bands I was hoping to talk to. Do apologize, but hopefully next year. Fingers are crossed for next year, which will be here before we know it. Like us on Facebook. Follow us on Twitter. Got some good things cooking here. I just had a conversation with some fellow podcasters yesterday, and we're doing a little bit of a collaboration. Not going to tell you who, not going to tell you what, but it'll be here soon, and I do hope you enjoy it. All right, let's take care of some business, and let's talk to Amy Darlin. This episode is sponsored by Blue Chew. Say it with us. Blue Chew. Blue Chew is making waves and bringing more confidence to the bedroom by offering chewable tablets that can help men get stronger and longer, lasting erections. Let's have a good time, baby. Blue Chew is a unique online service that delivers the same active ingredients as Viagra and Cialis, but in a chewable form and a fraction of the cost. Cha-ching. Blue Chew's tablets help men achieve harder, stronger erections to combat all forms of ED, erectile dysfunction. It's probably the most important thing in any relationship. Blue Chew is an online prescription service, so no visits to the doctor, no awkward conversations, and no waiting in line at the pharmacy. And it ships right to your door in a discreet package. The process is simple. Sign up at BlueChew.com, consult with one of their licensed medical providers, and once you're approved, you'll receive your prescription within days. The best part? It's all done online. Blue Chew's licensed medical providers work with you to find the right ingredient and strength for your prescription. Don't like swallowing pills? No problems here. Blue Chew's sildenafil and tadalafil tablets are chewable. Blue Chew's tablets are made in the USA, America, and they prepare and ship direct, so it's cheaper than a pharmacy. So if you could benefit from extra confidence when it's time to perform, visit BlueChew.com for more details and important safety information. And here's a special deal for the Hook Rocks podcast listener. Try Blue Chew free when you use our promo code MILKSHAKE. And check out at checkout, just paying $5 shipping. That's BlueChew.com, promo code MILKSHAKE to receive your first month free. And we thank Blue Chew for sponsoring the Hook Rocks podcast. Let's get to it, people. My next guest is an emerging artist who I came across probably 3-4 weeks ago as I was on Facebook, and I was on Tuck Smith's Facebook page, and he was doing a gig out in Nashville, also with this artist, and her name is Amy Darling, and I'm very happy to have her on the Hook Rocks on the New Music Spotlight. How are you, Amy? How's it going?
I'm good, just peachy.
Are you in Nashville or are you in LA?
I'm in Nashville. I've been here for like 8 years now.
Okay. Because I was reading your bio, and I think the song "Nasty Habits" was about your time in LA, right?
It was, yeah. Okay. When I lived in downtown LA.
All right. Well, before we begin, we always start the same way every time we have a new guest on the Hook Rocks, and that is the essence of the show. Just like every rock song has a hook that sucks you in, every rock fan has a moment, whether it's a song, a band, an album, or performance that hooked them on rock and roll. What was it for you?
Okay. So I grew up super grateful. I grew up on rock and roll and Motown, but I think in high school I discovered the Stones, which are obviously a huge influence of mine, but it was probably the first time that I heard "Can't You Hear Me Knocking." I just had this very vivid memory of I was downloading songs on LimeWire, because that's what we did when I was in high school. I downloaded that song, and I remember hearing that riff and just being holy shit, this is what it's all about. And maybe not knowing exactly what rock and roll would be in my life now, but knowing that something about it really resonated with me.
Most people like myself discovered that song watching Goodfellas.
Oh yeah. I feel like I grew up watching those movies because my cousin Aaron, who was my older brother, was obsessed with Scorsese movies, which I love those movies too. But I don't know how I discovered that song. I just used to download random Stone songs on my ancient iMac.
Well, where did it go from there? I mean, you discovered "Can't You Hear Me Knocking," and when did it become that you wanted to do this for a living? You wanted to sing and perform?
So I think the first time I really so I grew up a theater kid. So I performed from the time I was 6 years old, singing, competed in dance. But I kind of started getting into rock and roll and that sort of thing again in high school. And the first time that I really even considered fronting a band was probably when I saw the Yeah. I just remember seeing Karen O and her energy and just being so blown away and just kind of thinking I think I could do that. And that was the first time that I ever really thought about doing that. I think prior to that, what I saw myself doing as far as performing was very different. And then eventually ended up deciding to take doing my own music as my path.
Were there other influences besides the ones you mentioned? I mean, were there, what were your primary influences? I know you mentioned the Stones and, before, but moving forward as you started to dive into it, where did you go? Where did that journey lead you to?
Yeah, so I mean, the big obvious ones are like the Stones and Bowie and Tina Turner. I love like early Rod Stewart and the Faces. Lou Reed is a huge influence. Susie Quatro. As far as like songwriters, Tom Petty is a big influence. And then, I mean, yeah, that was kind of where it started. And I mean, I also like DJ vinyl, so I've kind of gotten into like more niche things. Like I love like glam rock and junk shop glam and like bubblegum. They all have just like really great songs. So like, you know, like Euro glam, like Mud. I love Roxy music. Anything from RAK Records. This isn't really Euroglam, but like Milk and Cookies and Sparks and all that kind of stuff.
The only Milk and Cookies I know is what my mother used to give me when I was a kid. So what is Milk and Cookies?
Okay. Milk and Cookies is this glam band that was out of New York, and like I think they only had like one record and then like a few 45s. Just really great pop writing and super glammy rock and roll. One of the guys that played with Milk and Cookies, Sal Maida, also played with like Sparks and stuff, but they're like kind of one of my favorite little niche bands.
What period were they from?
Guess they would be like mid to late 70s, like kind of later in the glam spectrum.
So like kind of like the New York Dolls era.
Yeah,
okay.
I think, right around that time, because in Sal Maida's book, he talks about hanging out with Johnny Thunders and like a delicatessen in New York. So yeah, definitely around that time.
I'll have to check that out. So yeah, so one of my things to do now is to check out Milk and Cookies.
Oh yeah.
Where did your songwriting journey become? You know, or when did that begin? You know, because when I hear like Rock and Roll Woman, I do hear the Faces, I do hear the Stones, I do hear a lot of that stuff that you've just mentioned. You know, it feels like a I don't know if this makes sense to you, but especially when I hear like Rock and Roll Woman, it feels like a traveling band that you're playing with, and that you're, you know, the kind of music that, you know, a band like that would play. You know, the way you move in the video is very reminiscent to an old Rod Stewart from the Faces. Where did your journey in songwriting begin?
So that's a loaded question. Okay, so I moved to LA to pursue music, and kind of just got very like distracted by, as you can in LA. I really started to hone in on my songwriting craft. Actually, when I did a songwriting program in London, I went to music school there. And I think for me, like being put in that focused environment was something that I really needed. So, I mean, I was always such a fan of music and hadn't really like written my own songs until I like kind of went over across the pond to kind of start honing in on my craft.
Was there a particular song that led you to that journey? I mean, you know, like a lyric or, you know, what a song was about?
Not really in particular. I mean, just like the artists that influenced me, and I think like I'm a sucker for like great hooks and like big choruses. I think some of that probably comes from like being a theater kid too. You know, so kind of bringing the theatrical elements to like the rock and roll elements, and then bringing it into my songs.
As you write and as you're honing your craft, where do you get your inspiration for writing? Is it through observation? Is it through personal experience? Are you trying to tell a story? Is it all the above, or where do you usually go when you're writing music?
Man, kind of all of the above. Like, I do obviously write a lot from personal experience. I find that I have a bit more of like a literal kind of writing style. Like kind of like Lou Reed is a big influence of mine, and I feel like Lou Reed was like very literal, so I feel like I can be very literal. And I also love like writing a good story. Like my song Candy from my EP was totally a story. Little like nuggets of autobiography, like semi-autobiographical, but then also like taking those elements and turning it into this character that is very much like not me. So yeah, I mean, kind of all over the place. I mean, I never know what's gonna like spark something, but then when it does, I just kind of run with it.
You mentioned creating this character. Is it creating a persona for you of, the Amy Darling that's maybe different than your everyday life that you get to live through being, in rock and roll?
I'm pretty like unapologetically myself.
Okay.
In everything that I do. So, I think like, as far as chasing a persona, I think I chased the lifestyle for a long time, but I feel like I've really come into myself as like a human and an artist, and I think that kind of transcends everything that I do.
The song Nasty Habits that was released, 6 weeks ago or something like that, paints a picture, and it kind of does tell a story of the life that you were living or the life that you experienced in LA. How hard was it to tap into that, relive those experiences, and come out with a song like Nasty Habits?
It's interesting. I feel like a lot of those experiences, like in that moment, I was like, I kind of have to be like this tortured soul for my art. And like, as I was experiencing it, I couldn't really write about it, but I guess I don't really have trouble like revisiting things for a song. I actually write about things better retrospectively than when I'm in the moment. I think sometimes when you're in the moment of something, it's kind of hard to see like what it actually is. And then when you're able to like take a step back and look at it a little bit objectively, you can kind of create something out of it.
Right. I mean, anytime you're in a situation, right, when things settle, or, after you've moved on from something and you look back, you have a different perspective on it because you were able to live a life beyond that or after that experience that maybe gives you a different perspective of what it was like. And maybe sometimes it's easier. I know some artists who write about difficult topics, difficult personal topics, have a really difficult time tapping into that vulnerability of an experience that maybe wasn't the best. Maybe it revisits emotions that they had forgotten about. But even so, even during that, it's still therapeutic. When you are writing about a personal experience that maybe is a little difficult, do you still have what you just said, that different perspective? Or is it something that like you're fearful to write about, that maybe, you're revisiting something that was uncomfortable, maybe difficult for you?
I don't know. I think I've learned so much from like different experiences. I mean, I guess like that was such a dark time, but there was also so much about it that was so like ridiculous that like, I don't know. I guess I tend to like look back on things and try to find like the light and the humor and like the beauty in them. Which I mean, I guess like I'm grateful for. So yeah, like, it was a dark time, but like also like there really was a like dude in the window across from me that was like always staring into my window, and like downtown LA like was such a crazy place at that time. Like it was like very much in the process of being gentrified, and there was like this hedonistic whirlwind that we all like lived in. So like, I mean, it's just kind of, I guess now I look at it and I'm just like, wow, that was like crazy, and let's make some art and entertainment out of it because it needs to be written about.
Was it ever overwhelming for you, that experience?
It got to be. I mean, I definitely like left downtown LA. So, I mean, I think those types of experiences tend to be like fun until they're not.
Well, you're in Nashville now, and did you move to Nashville because the experience started to get a little darker than you anticipated, or was it more about going after the music and being closer to the music industry? Because it is Music City, and a lot of people over the last half dozen years have moved from LA to Nashville because, you know, there's working musicians. You're always going to be able to find work. There's clubs all over the place. There's places to play. What went into that move from LA to Nashville?
So I went from LA to London. So that's when I kind of like dipped, and I was like, all right, I'm going to go do this music program that I got into at this like small music school. So I went and I did that. I lived in London for a year and a half. And then when I came back to the States, it was kind of like, well, LA had become really toxic. Nashville was kind of a whim. Like, I had been here. I came to Bonnaroo one year, actually, with my mom, and I really liked it. I knew it was a music town, so I kind of just moved here on a whim, knowing that it was a great music town, and haven't really looked back. I really do love it here. There's a great community. I think that like the caliber of music coming out of Nashville sets a really great bar to jump over, and yeah, I mean, no complaints really.
I think the misconception people have is it's a honky tonk town, right? It's country music, and it's amazing how many great rock bands and great rock artists are in Nashville. Whether it's, you know, the Dead Deads, whether it's True Villains, who's an up and coming act as well. There's so many great artists that have moved there. I mean, I think even some of the legacy artists. I know Vince Neil lives close to Nashville. I know there's others as well, because it is a music community, whereas LA has kind of drifted away from that in a lot of certain aspects. It still is. It still has a heavy influence of music, but like you said, it can be toxic. It can be difficult to find your way. You can really get sucked into a lifestyle. And I think just that easiness of Nashville is more appealing to an artist.
Absolutely. I think Nashville definitely attracts the type of person that, I don't know, it has this very like neighborhoody, like it's such a small big town, right? Like, and it is a community, and like people are really nice. And I feel like when people move here and they're like competitive or weird, like that kind of gets weeded out really fast. And I really like appreciate that about here. Like, it's kind of like there's plenty to go around, and people like really do help each other out. And I don't know, it's just, it is like a really special place to be. And yeah, like in LA, like it is hard to navigate because it's so big. And I guess something about Nashville, because it has that smaller feel, just makes it a little bit more tangible.
Yeah, it's interesting because I know people who live in both places, and where LA used to always rule the roost in terms of the club scene and playing out. I mean, you walk up and down Broadway and 2nd Avenue in Nashville, and there's a club every 10 feet. And, there's also these, secret little alleyways that have these rock clubs that people don't really know about. And there's always live music playing. And, as cover bands have kind of crept into the LA scene a little bit in most scenes, Nashville still seems pretty pure in terms of original artists, creating something from nothing, starting a band, working your way up, putting in the hard work like it used to be done. The only difference is like you said, it may not be a competitive atmosphere. It's more of a supportive atmosphere.
Yeah, absolutely. And like, I mean, there's always going to be cover bands in like more tourist centric areas. So like, yeah, if you go down to Broadway, that's like what you're going to hear. Right. But like, there's so many great clubs all over Nashville that have like nurtured all these baby bands. And like, I've watched so many like great bands come out of here and grow from like the start. So, yeah, there's there's something to do pretty much every night here, for whether you want to go see somewhere like the Basement East or like Mercy Lounge or Brooklyn Bowl and see like a bigger artist, or you've got like your little neighborhood spots like D's and the 5 spot where like, you know, like the other night I was over there watching my friends DOG play at D's, and like Marcus King got up and played with them because that's just like how it is here. And like, it's, yeah, again, it's like that whole like community thing and people just all coming together to play great music. I don't know.
I need to make it down to a show at the Ryman. That's one of my goals. I need to make it down for a show there because everyone I enjoy always plays there.
Yeah, I'm super bummed Joan Jett just played there and I totally spaced on it, and that would have been really fucking cool to see.
Yeah, I was close to going to see Butch Walker there a couple years ago, and I just couldn't make it down to go see him play at the Ryman. But I know this great band that I like called Lucero is playing there, I think in October or November, and they're really cool. They're like this band of misfits that make great music, fantastic music.
Cool. I'll have to maybe look into that. I think I'm going to try to go see Sparks there, I think in March.
Okay.
Which I love Sparks. I don't know if you saw that documentary recently that just came out, but I highly recommend.
I will check that out. Yeah. When you're writing in Nashville after moving from London and you're tapping into something like Nasty Habits, right? And you're going through what you were living through in LA and you're writing that song and you're in Nashville now. You talked about the perspective of having lived through something and then revisiting it and having a different view on it. Did it help you write about it now that you're in Nashville and having that supportive atmosphere that kind of tells you that maybe, you know, what you were dealing with was in fact, you know, a lifestyle that was overwhelming?
I don't really, I mean, Nasty Habits in particular, I think was kind of just celebrating like the quirkiness of it.
Okay.
I don't know. Like I didn't really find it like difficult to write that song. I mean, I think I kind of had the idea for that song for a long time before I actually like brought it to fruition. It kind of took a few different forms. But I write like primarily with my guitar player, Kevin Smith. And I kind of had the idea for like this spoken word kind of verse. And then he kind of came up with that like riff and like the bass line and stuff for it. So we kind of like collaborated on it together, and he's always like really like encouraging, like if it's like a good idea. So like, I don't know, I felt like the idea was very like nurtured by the process.
Yeah. When I hear that song, the way it's written and the way it's presented, it's you singing and there's words, but it's also very visual, right? I mean, it's almost like that 70s influence of, like when you hear the Eagles' Lion Eyes or when you hear a Stone song that tells a story, about someone. And it's very reminiscent of that. And that's kind of how I appreciated it because, when I put the headphones on or I'm listening to it in the car, it takes me to a different place because it provides that story. It provides almost a narrative to what you went through and what you're trying to do. It paints a very vivid picture.
Well, cool. Thank you. I mean, I definitely love that about certain songs, and I don't know, to me, it's like I'm always trying to like paint a picture and also like come up with like a great hook, right? Because like, I don't know, I love Tom Petty's quote, like, don't bore us, get to the chorus. Like you want something that kind of grabs people and draws them in. So yeah, I really appreciate that because that's definitely like something I'm always trying to achieve in my songwriting for sure.
When you were dealing with the pandemic like the rest of us and everything is locked down and shut down, obviously different areas of the country had different restrictions. Did that affect your writing style? Did that affect what you were writing about?
Man, it's so interesting. Different people I know had such different experiences. It was like, in a way, that's kind of like what I've been wanting for a long time, is like just like not having to work a job and getting to like have time to play music. But then like my reality was that like I was kind of trapped in a house with like roommates and boyfriend, and like it was just kind of everyone on top of each other. So I personally had a really hard time finding space to be creative. I kind of more just tried to hone in on like certain skills, I guess. Like I started playing piano again a lot, and like that's been really cool to kind of explore that. That was my first instrument as a kid. So not as much writing, but just kind of trying to like better myself as a musician. I had friends that were like super productive, but I guess like for me too, I had recorded this kind of group of songs that I'm like, Nasty Habits was the first one, but then the rest that I'm getting ready to release prior to the pandemic. So it's kind of sitting on all this work that was like not quite finished. So yeah, I don't know. I had a hard time finding my creativity. And I guess like for me, a lot of inspiration comes from like living and like experiencing. So like being trapped in a house was just like not super inspiring to me.
For sure. It is difficult for people to be creative when they are using life to find, their inspiration. And when you're doing the same things. And plus too, every time you turn on the TV in 2020, everything is so negative, whether it's the pandemic, whether it's the toxic election, whether it's the protest all around the country. And you're absorbing this and you're viewing it. And, someone like yourself who is creative needs that outlet to speak, to have their voice, right? I mean, that's why you do what you do, is because you're able to witness things and take things in and then turn it around and digest it and then release it, right? Release what you're feeling. And not being able to do that, or being compromised, whether it's everyone being on top of each other where you live, or just not finding that space that you need to be creative. How did you overcome that?
I mean, you just like make do with what you have. Yeah, I mean, I just like, it wasn't really like a super creative time for me. I had friends who were like mega productive, and I feel like it was very like 50-50 with my musician friends. Like, I feel like people were either like, I've been writing nonstop, or there's been like, I can't like come up with anything. So I think everyone just kind of handled it differently. And I will say, I feel like my friends that were very productive were more the people that were living alone. So yeah, I don't know that I did overcome it like in that time, but then now, since things have like opened up and like life has started happening again somewhat, I guess I'm feeling a lot more inspired. It feels good to like be getting songs out, and there's always a lot of work that goes around that, like whether it be videos and just all the stuff that goes into releasing music.
Yeah, because like you said, it's 50-50. I've asked that question about the creative process during this time to pretty much everyone. And I enjoy asking it because I find the interest, the answers interesting, because everybody's different. There might be some similarities in people's answers, but it is all different. Everything from going into a bubble and, purposely just, making music and trying to drift away from reality, to having reality affect the tone of music, or, having that angst or anger that you're in the music that maybe you're feeling because of what you're seeing and witnessing. It is such a interesting time, because it really is I don't want to say a study, but it's just to see everyone's different reaction and how creative people are using their outlets, or not having an outlet, to kind of compartmentalize what they're seeing and writing about it. It's such an interesting way to see how everyone's dealt with it differently.
Absolutely. I think like for me too, I also like work better under a certain amount of like not pressure, but yeah, I guess like pressure or like deadlines and just like having idle. It's like the more time I have, the more like distracted I'm going to be. And it's like the more like, I don't know, maybe it's like an ADHD thing, right? Cause like when I'm go, then I'm just like in it and I'm like doing things, I'm creating and then all the other things. So like, I think like something about like having like too much time is, I guess from that experience I've learned is like not really ideal for me.
Well, you know, when you're dealing with a lot of time or you're dealing with things, you as a creative person, you may always think that you have to be creating something because you have this time. And, you know, the creative process is so different than anything else because it works on its own time. You know, you can want to write a song, but the song may not just come to you like that, and then all of a sudden it pops into your head, or you feel something in the most unique circumstances, and then you have a song. So it's, you know, there are people that can write a song in a studio. I'm going in the studio today, I'm going to write 2 songs, and they're able to do that. Not everyone's built that way, and it's interesting to hear your experience versus others. As far as the music goes, though, with everything that was happening, did you find your music a little darker in tone or a little, you know, deeper in terms of what you were trying to write about versus because of what was happening versus other times?
I don't know. Like I don't really write dark music.
It's not just the music.
It's as dark as I get. And
right.
like I'm kind of like more like a rock and roll good time kind of gal. I don't know. Maybe that's like kind of shallow, but like that's kind of what I like and what I tend to write. I guess like, did I like address like certain issues in my writing? Like, I mean, I guess I wrote like a couple little things, like just more as like a therapy exercise, but not really like something that I would like release or record. So like, yeah, I guess like in that way, like it did affect my writing in that I like tried things, but I don't know that I got anything that I like would have used as like work that I wanted to show out of that time.
Maybe not just the lyrics, right? But music does have color to it. And you write about good times, you know, rock and roll woman. And when you're going through that, does the color change for you, right? I mean, you might still be writing about the things that you want to explore and the things that you write about, but maybe that tone is just a little different because of what you're feeling. Was that an issue, or was it just you with the same process?
I mean, I think like it was really like, I mean, last year was like just pretty intense emotionally for everyone. So yeah, I mean, obviously that's going to like affect the way that I write and like I function. But again, like none of the songs I really like wrote last year were things that like I've like decided to like continue working with. And then it's like, you never know, like sometimes you look back and you're like, hey, like this like wasn't a bad idea. Let's like look at that. Some of the songs that I had written like prior to that year, like sort of felt like weird premonitions, like Lip Service, which is the song that I'm about to release in a couple weeks. I mean, it's like kind of about like, you know, people putting their money where their mouth is, and like, I don't know, it just like felt very like relevant, and I had written it like long before 2020 ever happened. So that was kind of interesting to see how like songs kind of find their place like in a moment.
What's next for you? What is coming up in the future? You just mentioned a new song coming out soon. Where does Amy Darling go for the rest of 2021 into 2022?
Yeah, so I have a bunch of songs that I'm just going to be releasing as singles. I think we kind of recorded it as a record, but right now, especially as like an independent artist, it's just kind of a singles game. So next single is coming out on the 27th, August 27th, and that's called Lip Service. And then we're just going to keep following it up with like videos and more songs, like hopefully I'm trying to go for like about like once a month as far as like releasing songs. So we'll see if I can like stick to that timeline.
And then as far as playing live, are you staying local to Nashville? Is there opportunity for you to play for more people or get on the road a little bit?
Yeah, so we're playing our next like local show is September 2nd at the 5 spot, and then we are going to be heading out to Atlanta to do a show with Tuck, who you mentioned earlier, and another band called The Girls, and that's on September 4th. So, some little like one-offs out of town, like, I don't know, everything still feels so like uncertain. I think like, and I do think like people are just going to continue to like play and tour and stuff. So yeah, I mean, definitely playing out of town is like in the cards, but just kind of a couple little like one-offs for now.
It's got to be cool playing with Tuck. I mean, he's, young still, but also a rock and roll veteran. I mean, he did the band Biters, which is one of my favorite bands. And then, I know he's in the process of trying to figure out where he's going after, leaving Better Noise. What's that like to tour with someone, not tour, but to play with him on the same stage? And then you also did that gig with him too a few weeks back.
Yeah, I mean, it's great. It's always great to find another like rock and roll ally who, loves, is in it for like the long haul. And yeah, it's always great to like meet other rock bands and that you like mesh well with and can do great shows together with. So yeah, it's been like, I mean, the Brooklyn Bowl show was great and I'm looking forward to more.
And you speak of the uncertainty too. I mean, obviously COVID cases are rising once again. As I mentioned in the beginning, different places around the country have different restrictions, and there'll be more restrictions being put in place as time moves on. Being, someone that, is still emerging into the scene, how do you navigate through something like that with that uncertainty? Is it just, you just kind of got to go with the flow, or do you have an idea because after already going through it over the past year, you kind of knowing what to expect and knowing what you have to do?
Man, I feel like all you can do is just try to find the next right thing. And like, you can try to like, you don't know what's going to happen in the future. Right. So it's like, yeah, I'm just going to keep moving forward and like booking shows. And, if things fall through because things get worse, like that is what it is. I think it's great that people are requiring like, vaccination cards or like negative COVID tests. Cause I really like, don't think this thing is going anywhere anytime soon unless more people get vaccinated. But yeah, I mean, you just can all you can really do is just like try to like keep putting one foot in front of the other with like what you're doing and hope for the best.
Yeah, I mean, it is. We were, we were having so many good moments for a while, in terms of going to see live shows and, pretty much getting back to normal. But now you see bands like Blackberry Smoke canceling shows, Tesla canceling shows. Who else? Mammoth, Wolfgang Van Halen having to cancel a couple of shows. It's upsetting because it doesn't have to be this way. It really doesn't. And the longer this keeps dragging on, the worse it's going to get. And at least I think in the short term future, we're going to have some more roadblocks put in place before we can move on once again. And it's disappointing, I'm sure, for people like yourself who want to play, and this is how you make your living. And all we can do right now is keep our fingers crossed that it's going to get better, or the numbers are going to turn around.
Yeah, absolutely. It's such a complicated situation, but I agree. I don't think it really has to be. I think it's actually like pretty simple what people need to do, but unfortunately it's become very politicized and overcomplicated. So.
Right. Yeah. I mean, vaccination or vaccines should not be a political stance. To have that suspended again, it's going to be a bummer. Anyway, Amy, thank you very much for doing this. It was a pleasure getting to know you in this interview, and look forward to the new music.
Yeah, thank you for having me. My pleasure.
All right, everybody, that's Amy Darling. I'm Jay Scott. This is The Hook Rocks, the Ultimate Rock Community Podcast. Stay safe, stay strong, stay healthy, and we will talk again soon.
Who is always staring back at me? He knows all about my nasty habit. I wipe my finger on the mirror as I leave my graveyard of Jameson. Junkies, bankers, hustlers, and hoes flood the streets. Everyone's a winner on Skid Row. You've got nothing to lose until your next score. Searching all around for nasty habits. Everybody's got nasty habits. On the corner of Fifth and Spring lies my dignity in clothing on the floor, working